Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. I, Nichiren, am sovereign, teacher, and father and mother to all the people of Japan. But the men of the Tendai school, who do not refute misleading teachings, the ones who are claimed to be practicing Tendai doctrine, but they don't correct the misleading and mistaken teachings of the other groups, and even those within their own ranks, right? They are all great enemies of the people. As Chang'an has noted, quote, one who rids the offender of his mistaken, erroneous act acts as his parent. Once again, Nichiren reminds us, we're not trying to criticize other Buddhists for being bad as people. We are criticizing other Buddhists for not standing up to for Buddhism, for the correct practice of Buddhism. When somebody is doing harm to the practice of Buddhism, they are actually doing harm to the people, to other people. So as functioning as a parent, it's incumbent upon us as Buddhists to correct wrong behavior. That's not to slander or belittle others practicing Buddhism, but to help them practice correctly with even greater compassion in a way, because they think mistakenly that they are practicing correctly. And really, how can we tolerate that? Not because it's insulting to us personally, but because our missions as bodhisattvas is to assist others in attaining their enlightenment. And they are obviously in the best position to do so, and yet misled, incorrect, erroneous thoughts, practices. It's a very compassionate act to correct that person's behavior. You see, attitude and intent, always. Welcome to this podcast. I hope this finds you well, good health, secure. And if not, let's chant Daimoku and strengthen our lives so that even in the circumstances where things may seem challenging or even threatening, that we keep our utmost Buddha mind active for the best possible result in all our situations in life, yeah? My name is Sylvain. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping to support and expand this Sangha, this resource on YouTube, as well as on the website, bookstores, so on and so forth. You know the drill. On Patreon and PayPal. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Please like and subscribe these videos. It helps the algorithm make this more locatable, findable, come up in search results for people who are curious, and it expands our Sangha, yeah? It's a tiny thing, but it's a bodhisattva act. Continuing with Nichiren, as we're about to complete the opening of the eyes. We're at the last few paragraphs here. So let's see how he closes out this treatise. He goes on, one who has not conceived a desire for the way can never free oneself from the sufferings of birth and death, right? The hell of incessant suffering, this samsaric existence, right? Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, was cursed by all the followers of non-Buddhist teachings and labeled as a man of great evil, right? Because that's what human beings do. When we don't like something, we demonize it. We turn it into evil, right? So look, that guy, he's teaching these things. Oh, what a horrible scourge. Because they don't want you to pay attention to what he has to say, because if you do, oh man, you're going to see the logic and the truth in it, and you'll scurry away from these others. They don't want to lose your patronage, so they're going to do everything in their power to demonize this other, right? This is still going on today, constantly. This is why we have such a divided world, yeah? Everyone's a this or that, an us or them, right? Anyway, moving on. The great teacher Tendai, Chi-che, Z-E, however you say his name, was regarded with intense enmity by the 3 schools of the South and the 7 schools of the North, and Tokuitsu of Japan criticized him for using his 3-inch tongue to try to destroy the 5-foot body of the Buddha. All this representational language, right? Tendai was a great force in China in the 6th century, yeah? Really instrumental in reorganizing all Chinese scholarship around Buddhism to recognize the supremacy of the Lotus Sutra and the proper order of the teachings. He did a lot to organize the scholarship, and China did a lot to organize the scholarship of Buddhism once it had left India and gone through the Gandhara region, which we only in the last couple of decades have learned a lot about the Gandhara region, being a world focal area of Buddhism, scholarship of Buddhism, the spread of Buddhism into many languages, transcribed by wealth there and scribes that endeavor to keep the teachings pure and into the future. That was always the fear, that the teaching would be lost. And as we get to the 2,500 years after Shakyamuni's, I was going to say demise, but his extinction, Shakyamuni himself said this era will be very much the danger, I can't speak today for some reason, of losing the teachings altogether. So people will have to rise up, right? You know the story. To keep these teachings alive. And this is what Nichiren identifies as his particular mission in Japan, yeah? And certainly in China, the schools of Buddhism that were quite popular and supported, always remember, supported financially, politically, by the people as well as the government, all over China, huge country, had their firmly entrenched little systems going. And until Tendai, they all contended with one another, and Tendai kind of unifies everything. It goes, you all guys, you need to look at this and correct what you're doing. And again, as I mentioned before, these huge public debates would occur for the people as well as the government to pick a winner. And Tendai roundly gained the respect of all of these different sects because they couldn't compete with his knowledge, with his logic. You're absolutely right. The Lotus Sutra, it clears up all of this stuff. It demystifies. It's obvious, right? Plain as day. You're right. And they all became followers of Tendai until, of course, he passed away, and then things start to slip and egos start to get involved, and you know the story. This happens constantly in everything, not just Buddhism. All right. The great teacher Dengyo, right, who brought the Tendai school to prominence in Japan, was disparaged by the monks of Nara who said, quote, Saicho has never been to the capital of Tang, China. Yeah, he can't be a scholar. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He hasn't been to Tang, China, because for the Japanese at the time, the schools, the most evolved schools of Buddhism were from Chinese scholarship, with good reason, Tendai being one of the main reasons, yeah? But all of these abuses were incurred because of the Lotus Sutra, and they are therefore no shame to the men who suffer them. To be praised by fools, that is the greatest shame. Now that I, Nichiren, have incurred the wrath of the authorities, the monks of the Tendai and True Word schools are no doubt delighted. They are strange and shameless men. Yeah, he's being silenced. Now we don't have to worry about him challenging our comfortable positions, right? Shakyamuni Buddha appeared in the Saha world. Kumarajiva journeyed to the Qin dynasty in China, and Dengyo likewise went to China, all for the sake of the Lotus Sutra. Aryadeva and Aryashima sacrificed their bodies. Bodhisattva Medicine King burned his arms as an offering, and Prince Jogu stripped off the skin of one hand and copied the sutra on it. Now, I hope you realize by now, these are personages. They're not actual people who lit their arms on fire or ripped their skin. I know in our contemporary times we've read and we've seen film snippets on video, on newscasts of monks setting themselves on fire in the middle of the street in certain countries as a protest. That is not Buddhism. And it's heinous that we have to watch that stuff. It's so tragic. Those monks don't understand what they're doing. Nothing in Buddhism is about immolation. That's religion. It produces no results except shock. How long does the news cycle last? Because that's gone, right? Look at the way we have school shootings in this country, in the United States. I know we're all over the world, so let me be clear. Or shootings anywhere. I mean, the United States isn't the only place that has heinous behavior. But in the media here in the U.S., we only hear about ourselves, because other countries, the only time you hear news about other countries in the U.S. is when the U.S. is doing something there. What's allowed to be talked about, because the U.S. is doing lots of stuff we never hear about. I'm not getting on an anti-USA rant. I'm just saying politics drives the media. Corporations drive the media. So what we think we know is a paltry little sum of events. And when we hear in the world, oh, America, there's school shootings every day. Yeah, a lot of those countries might want to look at what's going on in their own country. I'm not an apologist for school shootings, mind you. I'm just pointing out. We hear a lot of things, and we see a lot of bad behavior, and it's just an indicator of the times we live in. Mapo. Ego and short-sighted supremacy, they run rampant. And the easiest will to power is violence. But that doesn't produce a beautiful life experience. We're Buddhists. We're looking to maximize the intense magnificence of being alive. With enough of that kind of energy, the idea of violence, gun or rock, is so unappealing, and it should be. This is how we hope to affect the world around us, to counter the great wave in the Mapo time period, these 10,000 years of the latter age of the law, and push that non-life affirming instantiation out of people's minds. But it starts with them seeking Buddhahood, right? Just as Nichiren has said. If you don't put your mind to it, then you go to the lowest common denominator. You become animals. You start to kill one another. You ever heard the story about rats? Rats are, whether you like rats or not isn't the point, but rats are quite intelligent rodents in the world of rodents. So much so that they're quite respected as having superior intelligence, organization skills, and right? They must be doing something right because they're everywhere. But here's the weird thing about rats. You get too many of them in one specific place. Say you remove their ability to get out of a certain area, a box, if you will, and you overpopulate the box. In other words, there are no longer enough resources in there for them to survive. They'll turn on each other and they'll start eating one another. Do you understand my analogy there? We have 8 billion humans on this planet now. Yeah, it's increasing rapidly. And the wars all over the world are about what? Resources. Who gets to control most of the resources? At some point, the resources are going to dwindle. They are dwindling. So what's going to happen then? Rats. All right, let's continue. But all of these abuses were incurred because of the Lotus Sutra, right? Now that I, Nichiren, have incurred the wrath of the authorities, the monks of the Tendai and True Word Schools, my competition, if you will, those who would rather see me shut the hell up so they could keep their comfortable political associations and money and land. They're like, cool, Nichiren's getting his butt kicked. Whew. I thought I was going to have to, start following him and lose all my position and blah, blah, blah. Shakyamuni Buddha appeared in the Saha world. Kumarajiva journeyed to the Qin dynasty in China, and Dengyo likewise went to China, all for the sake of the Lotus Sutra, right? Aryadeva, Aryashima, all of that. Shakyamuni, when he was a bodhisattva, sold his flesh to make offerings. Obviously, not literally. His attitude and intent, remember, always, his attitude and intent was that no thought of ego and pretty, makeup and presentate. No. His aesthetic was not of concern when compared to his desire for Buddhahood and for correct practice. Well, he was the original, right? The OG. And another time, when he was bodhisattva named ascetic aspiration for the law, he used one of his bones as a pen to write down the Buddha's teaching. Now that's an interesting sentence. I want you to pay attention to that, because even though this author, this translator, is kind of mixed up a little bit as we go through these translations, he gives away something that I'm always talking about with you, right? Listen carefully. He used one of his bones as a pen, and in parentheses, to write down the Buddha's teaching. Well, all throughout the many, many translations, we read Shakyamuni Buddha. And Shakyamuni is, I would say, 99% of the time referred to as the Buddha, which is complete misunderstanding. You and I know that. Nichiren knows that. And even translations of Nichiren's words don't show that. But occasionally it pops out, like right here. To write down the Buddha's words. Well, if he is the Buddha, isn't he writing down his own words? Why that grammatical twist here? I don't think he even noticed it. Because Shakyamuni is not the Buddha, Shakyamuni attained Buddha-ness. And of that reality, he speaks and teaches. But the speaking and teaching is Shakyamuni's. Shakyamuni's experience as a bodhisattva of an open gate to his Buddha-ness, the same Buddha-ness you and I can access at any time. But that's not made clear in these translations because so few people really understand the teachings of Shakyamuni. So consider yourself privileged. Throughout history, throughout the last 3,000 years, I'm rounding up, but 3,000 years, how few people, great scholars like Tendai, they knew, right? Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, for their time, they knew. Dengyo, Miaolo, Aryadeva, Nichiren, great scholars who, when they read the words, the sermons, the translations, the teachings of Shakyamuni, beyond all the cultural yin-yangs of language and misunderstandings, the truth just wham, hit them right in the face. Wow, I get it. I get it so much I can show you where the language and the misinterpretations are coming from. Well, this is our privilege now in Mapo to understand correctly the meaning, quote unquote, of Shakyamuni's teachings, so that we too can experience immediately, by invoking it, that Buddha-ness, that Buddha clarity, that Buddha understanding, involvement, being within, by penetrating that wall in our minds that separates samsara from enlightenment. What does that penetration look like? That's Gohonzon. That's what Nichiren identifies as our goal. Our goal is Gohonzon, to reach into our mind full of distractions and attachments, the database of identification, and bust open a window and see not just a blue sky, but well beyond it. The great time machine, the engine of life. Buddha-ness. Without restriction. Tendai has said that, quote, the method chosen should be that which accords with the time, end quote. The propagation of the Buddhist teachings should follow the time. For what I have done, I have been condemned to exile, but it is a small suffering to undergo in this present life, lifing, if you will, and not one worth lamenting. In future lives, I will enjoy immense happiness, a thought that gives me great joy. What he just said, future lives, again, a translation problem. Future lives are right now. This is what I keep telling you. Buddhism is not just about the moment. It's about the moment momentum, moment moving into the next moment. The moments, we can't even measure them. They're just piling on top of each other. And to be Buddhist, to be enlightened, is to be in the flow, not anchored in a moment, but to realize in this moment the flow leading into the future moments, constantly. To be in that flow of the energy of life, the engine of life. Immense happiness, a thought that gives me great joy. It doesn't give me great joy in the next life. It gives me joy in the next now. In Buddhism, we talk about past, present, and future, but only because it's a momentum through those things. The past sets up where we are as we move into the future. It's such a brief experience of life, but to be in tune to it, to see it as it is, that's Buddha-ness. To cling to things, to identify with things, boom, you're stuck in the past. It's like you just threw an anchor down. You're no longer living. Life is a verb. And that's how Nichiren concludes his opening of the I Go show, which, if you look at it to 20,000 foot level, right, get up off of it, instead of stuck in the words, what does the whole opening of the eyes talk about? This mental shift from the database of identification and possession and owning and competition and superiority and egos and to this intense experience of joy, this release, this liberation from the mire of delusion, living in the past and hopping on the momentum, moving forward. Wind in the hair. Might be solar wind, but it's wind nonetheless, yeah? Wow. This incredible speed of causation, 300 million meters per second of life. Yeah, we're hauling ass. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra. Your maximal experience of lifing, right? Well, that's a brief one today, but it was important that we complete this one. The next one I'm really excited for is on the treasure tower. And boy, we're going to nail. It's not a very long one. And then we'll follow that up with earthly desires are enlightenment. So we're going to learn about the mandala. We're going to shift a little bit. We're going to talk about Gohonzon, but on the treasure tower, it's about Gohonzon, but it's also references. Here's what the mandala's for. This is how we're going to utilize our samsaric physical environment to visualize, conceptualize, and manifest Gohonzon through the most excellent conceptualization that I, Nichiren, can design, can offer. And it's this mandala, this late mandala, because there are many, many good mandalas he made as he was developing his object of focus to manifest the objective of Gohonzon. Yeah? So that's going to be exciting. I can't wait to read that. I've got a lot of bolded text in here. Hopefully I'll remember why I bolded it. I'm sure I will. On the treasure tower. Until then, please take care of your health. Keep your practice strong. Support the Sangha. If that means like and subscribe, then like and subscribe. Please, it's very helpful. If you can do more for yourself, because all of this is about making your practice strong. So the ebooks on threefoldlotus.com, a very easy way to get access to key book. I don't have all my books on the ebooks, and I've asked before. Nobody's said anything yet, but if there are books on the bookstore on lulu.com /spotlight/Kwoon, KWOON, meaning the sacred place of practice and study, this school. If you see some books there that you'd like to see as an ebook that I haven't included on the threefoldlotus.com website as ebooks, let me know, and I will make them available. But I think right now I've just got core stuff that you can download a mandala. You can download the book on the personages on the mandala, which is a great study resource on its own. Yeah. Anyway, let me know anything I can do to support your practice. That's what this is all about, right? I'm doing the best bodhisattva effort that I can muster in my own mind. But that doesn't mean I know everything. So, if there's something I'm missing or something I need to look into, I'm relying on you, the Sangha, to help point it out to me. Okay? And if not in the comments, email me directly. Sometimes you guys have personal issues or ideas and you're not sure you want to make them public. They're not really, maybe not appropriate yet because a lot of questions, doubts, whatever. Then please, by all means, email me directly, tlksylvain@gmail. That way we can have a conversation without going public, right? Sometimes it's more of a personal, I don't know, you might call it guidance, but I think it helps both of us, really. All that said, thank you once again. Take care of your health. And I will see you in the next one, the Treasure Tower. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Bye for now.